Jake helped Angela step toward the ambulance, still holding Lena's small hand. The mother's legs were weak, knees trembling, but the warmth of her daughter's hand gave her strength. Lena refused to let go of Tommy's jacket. I was so scared, she admitted, tears still dripping down her cheeks. Thank you for not letting anything happen to us. Tommy smiled softly. Brave girls survive storms. You did good tonight. Mace stood outside, scanning the horizon. Every shadow, every wet alley, every corner could hide danger. But for now, the street was quiet, the storm retreating, leaving only the gentle patter of rain on asphalt. The bikers mounted their motorcycles once more. Engines roared to life, powerful and steady, echoing down the wet highway. Rainwater splashed behind them, a storm's tribute to courage and human kindness. Inside the ambulance, Angela finally allowed herself to breathe. Who helped us? She asked softly, still clutching Lena. Lena smiled through tears. Angels, Mommy. Hell's angels, she whispered. Angela chuckled weakly, tears mixing with rainwater. They were heroes, she said. The ride back was long, but inside each biker, a quiet satisfaction hummed alongside the engine's roar. They didn't speak much. Words were unnecessary. They had acted. They had saved lives. And in doing so, they felt the weight of the world lighten, if only a little. The rain continued to fall lightly, streaking the windshield, reflecting the neon signs they passed. Tommy glanced at Lena in the rearview mirror, her eyes wide and filled with wonder. Even in such a small child, he saw courage that rivaled men twice her age. You're stronger than you know, he murmured. And one day, you'll understand just how brave you really are. The ambulance doors closed behind them. Angela held Lena tightly, whispering reassurances and words of comfort. Lena rested her head against her mother's shoulder, finally calming. For the first time that night, the little girl allowed herself to believe the nightmare had ended. Back on the highway, the bikers continued their ride. Mace led the group this time, scanning the horizon. Jake and Carter rode slightly behind, eyes constantly moving, alert. Eli stayed in the rear, ensuring the street behind remained clear. The city around them was quiet now, emptied by the storm. Streetlights reflected off puddles, creating paths of gold and silver across the asphalt. Every mile they rode was a mile of purpose, a mile of protection. They didn't need praise or gratitude. Their reward was the knowledge that a mother and daughter were safe, that a small girl had learned that the world, even in its darkest corners, still had people willing to act. As they neared the outskirts of the city, Tommy spoke. Remember tonight, he said quietly. It's not the size of the hero that matters. Sometimes it's the courage of the smallest voice that calls them to act. Lena's voice echoed in his memory. You're like angels. He smiled beneath his helmet. No, kid. Just people who don't turn away. The bikers rode past empty streets, past closed shops and puddle-covered parking lots. The storm was gone, leaving only the sound of engines and the rhythm of tires on wet asphalt. For Lena and Angela, the night would be unforgettable. The fear, the terror, the relief, all burned into memory. But more importantly, the lesson remained. Even in a world that sometimes looks away, there are those who stand up, those who protect, those who care. Not all heroes wear capes. Some wear leather jackets. Some ride motorcycles through storms. Some arrive quietly, but their actions echo loudly. And sometimes, it is the smallest voice, the bravest heart, that summons them. The bikers finally turned onto the open highway, leaving the city behind. They rode in silence, engines humming like a heartbeat. Each new tonight had changed them as much as it had changed the lives they saved. For Lena, the world had grown bigger and brighter in a single night. For Angela, faith in humanity had been restored. And for the bikers, the road stretched ahead, endless, full of purpose, full of the unspoken promise. Where there is fear, they will ride. Where there is danger, they will stand. Where there is a small voice calling for help, they will answer. As dawn began to break, painting the sky with streaks of gold and pink, Lena pressed her hand to the glass window of the ambulance. She watched the motorcycles disappear into the distance. A smile spread across her face, tears of relief and awe streaming down. She believed. The world still had angels. Not all heroes are remembered by names. Not all bravery is written in history. Sometimes it exists quietly, in actions witnessed by the few who needed it most. And tonight, in the rain-soaked streets of the city, 5 men on motorcycles reminded one little girl and her mother that humanity, at its best, still exists. She sat on the cold, wet pavement, knees pulled close to her chest. A little black girl soaked by the rain, crying quietly beneath the flickering streetlight. Her small hands clutched a torn teddy bear, threadbare and muddy from hours spent running through puddles. Each tear traced a line down her dirt-streaked cheeks. She shivered, not only from the rain but from fear, confusion, and exhaustion. The night around her seemed endless, stretching like a dark canvas with no promise of light. Through the heavy rain, a low rumble approached. The sound grew louder, steady, powerful, a storm within a storm. Motorcycles, 5 of them, headlights piercing the darkness and reflecting off the wet asphalt. The bikes slowed as they neared the little girl, tires hissing on the wet surface. Water splashed around their wheels. The engines fell into a deep, steady hum as the riders cut their throttles. The leader, Tommy, stepped off his bike. He was tall, broad-shouldered, leather jacket tight over his chest, rain dripping from the seams. His boots hit the pavement with a quiet authority. He slowed his steps as he approached her, not wanting to frighten her further. The others, Jake, Mace, Eli, and Carter, parked behind him, scanning the shadows with cautious eyes. They had been through storms before, both literal and figurative, but none quite like this. Tommy knelt down beside the little girl. "Hey there, little one," he said gently, voice low and calm. "Are you okay? What's going on?" The girl sniffled, pressing her small hands harder against her teddy bear. Her lips trembled. "My mom, she's inside," she whispered. They won't let her out." Tommy glanced at his brothers, Jake and Mace. He saw the fear in her eyes, not just the fear of the rain, but the kind of fear that comes from knowing someone you love is in danger. He could feel it radiating from her small body, a tremor that made his chest tighten. "Stay here, kid," Tommy said softly, trying to keep his tone calm and reassuring. "I'll take a look." He stood and nodded to Jake, who followed closely. Mace stayed near the girl, crouching low and scanning the street for any other threats. Eli and Carter circled the perimeter, their eyes sharp, hands near the grips of their bikes. Inside the gas station, chaos awaited. A man in a black mask stood over the cashier, shouting and waving a metal object. Behind him, the little girl's mother, Angela, was on her knees, hands shaking, face pale, eyes wide with panic. Her breath came in short, ragged gasps. Tommy entered, voice steady. "Step away." The man turned sharply, brandishing the weapon. "Stay out of this," he yelled. Jake moved fast, a blur of motion. In a split second, the knife clattered to the floor. The masked man stumbled backward into a corner, eyes wide, his confidence replaced with sudden panic. Tommy reached Angela and helped her to her feet. "Ma'am, you're safe now," he said firmly, holding her steady. Angela gasped, tears welling in her eyes. My baby's outside." Before Tommy could respond, the little girl, Lena, ran through the doorway. She dove into her mother's arms, crying, shaking, trembling from both fear and relief. Angela held her tightly, whispering reassurances over and over. The rain continued to pour outside, but inside the tiny station, warmth returned with their embrace. The bikers didn't wait for applause. Mace kept watch outside, alert, muscles tense, eyes scanning the horizon for any returning threat. The other riders stayed near the girl and her mother, offering jackets and blankets to wrap them in warmth. Tommy crouched beside Lena, brushing rain-soaked hair from her eyes. "See? Not all the world is cruel. Some people still care." Lena looked up at him, wide-eyed, voice trembling. "You're like angels," she whispered. Tommy shook his head slightly, a faint smile under his helmet. "No, kid, not angels. Just people who don't walk away when someone needs help. Outside, the rain began to slow, letting up in gentle drops. The storm clouds parted just enough for the neon sign of the gas station to glow, flickering like a heartbeat.